What's the worst thing someone has ever done to you? My parents divorced when I was 7. My father had an affair. My father remarried and got a new family. My mother remained single and bitter. She still loved him. They always used to argue about whose turn it was to have me. They were trying to spite each other, but the only thing that actually happened was that I realized neither of them must have loved me. One Christmas Eve when I was 14, they were having the same argument. My dad and his new family were staying in a hotel and told my mum they hadn't booked a room for me. I walked to my mum's and she said it was my dad's turn to have me and locked me out. I slept in a car park fire hose. It didn't actually have a fire hose in it. I was so freaking scared and cold. Skinny kid. I knew I couldn't ask my friends to stay because it was Christmas Eve and already close to midnight by this point. I started to cry when the snow started falling at about 3 AM. I wish I had known back then that I could have just called the police, but my juvenile brain didn't know that. I went to live in a children's home shortly after that, and honestly I loved it. I still think of my key worker as my dad. He was great. In response to some questions, I'm 35 now. I'm a female. My mother actually lives with me in my house now. I'm a very forgiving person. She became an alcoholic after my father left, so I blame him more. I know that's bad. She was an awful mother, but she was a product of her own upbringing. I wasn't so forgiving with my father because he replaced me. He tore me out of the children's home when I was 15 because he was embarrassed his daughter lived in a children's home. He did up homes for a living. Likely went from living into a 1-bed apartment to a 5-bed townhouse because he could afford that now. He put me in a Harry Potter room. It was a 5-bedroom, and my step-siblings had massive rooms. Despite me being older than them. Like if you walked into my room, it had a glass door. No privacy. You would bump your head. I left and went to live in a hostel. When I was a certain age, can't remember, my father bought my mother out of my 3-bed childhood home. She bought a 1-bed flat. I was like, okay, guess I'm not welcome. I phoned up social services and put myself into care. This is the story that got me. I'm so sorry. No one ever deserves this. I'm glad you ended up finding someone who cared, though. 3. Was early high school. Joking around with my father. Horrid temper. Switch flipped with him. He chased me down the hallway. Thought we even playing till he pinned me down. Hand around my throat, strangling me till I passed out. Burst blood vessels in my eyes. Had to wear sunglasses for a good week to hide them while at work or elsewhere. Yeah, that's not just a bad temper, that's attempted homicide. Whoa, lucky you woke up. It takes quite a while to strangle someone long enough to pass out, and if he didn't cool off in that time, then he might well kill someone one day. I hope he's not doing that to anybody else and your mum is well clear of him. My 60-year-old mother-in-law wanted to sign her house over to us because she has no retirement and no money saved. My wife was pregnant with our second child and she told us she wanted to be a stay-at-home grandma. I would be coming in and paying for everything. So we sold our house, paid off our debt, and cut a check for $54,000 to her ex-husband, which paid off the house in full. Then I made $10,000 worth of home repairs. All bills were transferred in my name. When it came to sign the deal, suddenly she didn't want to do it. Told us she wanted things to go back to the way they were. My father-in-law told her, well then we need to take out a home equity loan to give her their money back. She refused. The next week she served us an eviction notice and moved her boyfriend she claimed was abusive to her back in 2 days later. She threw her own daughter, my 3-year-old, and my 3-month-old baby on the streets. We tried to reason with her and then she had her lawyer threaten us with a restraining order. So now I'm suing her for my money back. Luckily my father-in-law is on our side and we were able to stay with him for the time being. Not much else to say other than show no mercy. Do not let them tug on any heartstrings to get you to lessen or lighten up. Burn her. Fabricated evidence against me to get me kicked out of my program, and then suffered no consequences when their lies were exposed. My ex-wife made me believe I was making up all the proof that she was having an affair. For a couple years, I went through therapy and anger management, accepted that I was just a fricked up person and should have never disrespected my loving wife by accusing her of such things. She pushed all the help on me, praised me, etc. 2 weeks after we divorced, She cheated on the guy she was dating, another affair dude, with me and admitted to everything. I kicked her out my house immediately. Extremely similar situation for me. It's amazing how manipulative someone can be and make you seem like the one constantly doing wrong. Probably the last 2 years of my life with my ex. Mentally and physically abusive. Arguing daily about the smallest things. Constant weekly screaming matches. Bi-monthly physical fights that I just took until I finally defended myself. He wound up getting 3 stitches and I got arrested. I'm so glad he's gone, but the trauma bond is real. A girl I was getting engaged to decided to start cheating. Then when that wasn't enough, she thought killing me by driving our car into a light pole on the highway would be better than her family finding out what she was really about. Dude, the lengths people will go to cover up cheating. Just holy crap. My dad used to beat me and my sister with belts, hangers, brushes, and not just a pop on the butt. He'd hit us as hard as he could repeatedly until our legs and butt were black and blue, and I remember hearing my sister's screams and cries for him to stop in the next room. My sister used to take off running to her bedroom whenever my dad would come home. My dad beat her for running to her room whenever he noticed the empty recliner in the living room rocking back and forth, meaning she leapt out of it fast to avoid him. Now whenever someone pulls off their belt, I immediately back away. My ex one time was just packing his bag for a trip and had a belt in his hand, and I responded in that way. This happened to me too. The fricked up part is that I still really love my folks. I just wish they didn't do that to me. An ex of mine broke all of my, at the time, recently deceased mum's things because I loved her more than I loved him. We'd only been dating a few months. I hope that was the end of your relationship. My stepdad stole 2 houses, 2 cars, a scooter and a boat from us when my mother died. He then proceeded to commit perjury and tell the judge that he was broke because he paid me and my sister $60,000 each. This got him out of a loan that he had from my aunt, who loaned my mother hundreds of thousands of euros so she could buy our house. Basically, he did so much acrobatics that I didn't even get my own bed or clothes back, and he ended up with everything that could remotely be stamped as my mother's property. Overall, the worth of everything he stole, not just from my side of the family, but his ex-wife that he got back to later, is upwards of $500,000. His wife then also dies and he takes whatever's left. My lawyer told me I couldn't do anything since now 2 wives of his died in a 3-year span and there was no way a judge would look at him and say he owes anyone anything. Honestly, I think he married my mom and then killed her. The same with his then ex but current after wife, who also died rather quickly. When I was little, my dad smiled every time before he beat me, so now I flinch every time someone smiles. People always look at me weird when I look scared of them being happy. I hate it. I really do. That's PTSD, my friend. I jump like a scared little mouse if there's a sudden loud noise. It makes me the angriest I can possibly be for a few seconds after. The delivery guys who let the lift gate on the back of their trucks just slam onto the street always get me. I hate it. Well, my ex dropped the fact she was late and might be pregnant, and then admitted it was either for me or her 2-year-old's father. After sitting down and really thinking about it, it turns out I was the other guy, not vice versa. Long story short, she wasn't pregnant and I noped the frick out of there. Kept me in a fricking bed all of my childhood, screaming in my face, "Frick you, mom. I hope you have a Janet in your life now, too." My mother gave away the dog that I had solely taken care of for years, and then the aunt that she gave it away to gave him to a random person. They stole my dog, the best animal I've ever had. She has a history of being terrible to dogs. Love you, Jock. I hope you're still alive and they didn't lie about that too. Freshman year of college, I met a girl and we became best friends. We did everything together. Then one day in class she told me she didn't want to talk, she wanted to read. That was fine, of course. She did that 2 more days. The 4th day she moved her seat from next to me to across the room. I tried to get her attention to talk but she avoided me. Next week we both happened to be washing our hands in the bathroom together. I said hi. She acted like I never existed. Soon she left the college. I went to grad school 3 years later, somewhere 2 hours away, and lo and behold she was in my class. We were assigned the same group for a project. She looked uncomfortable and the next time class met, I found that she had dropped it. I never saw her again. It hurt me deeply because I had no clue why she did this. We didn't fight. I'm not manipulative or catty or anything. This wasn't the worst thing to happen, but it definitely ranked up there. I had something like that happen, so I know exactly how that feels. The worst part is not knowing why, and it makes it that much harder to get over it. It's also so frustrating because I'd prefer someone to have the guts to just tell me they don't want to be friends for reasons X, Y, or Z as opposed to trying to ignore me. It would still suck, but at least I would know why. When I was a kid, my mom and dad weren't very well off, and one day my great-grandfather got terminally ill. My aunt, who was taking care of him at the time, couldn't afford to put him in a nursing home. My mom, being a licensed nurse, agreed to take care of him if they could get some of the money from his life insurance to pay a 1-year lease for the house they took care of him in. My mom and dad took amazing care of him all the way up until around 2 months in, when my great-grandfather passed away. When he died, my great-aunt decided to go back on the deal so she and her husband could move to Florida with their son. My parents already signed the lease, and so when this happened, we went homeless. We lived in hotels until eventually my parents lost custody of me and my sisters, and we've been living with our grandparents ever since. This wasn't told to me until I was 15. I am 16 now and I still live with my grandparents. Not exactly the worst, but I had a close friend that, in the space of a week, decided I was the Antichrist. Told our neighbors I had been stalking her. Contacted my employer to say the same thing. I had a job as assistant superintendent. Spread a lot of gossip and slander. Mind you, none of that stuck to me, because people knew it was BS. A few months later, I found a bin of stuff she had been storing in my condo. Decorating supplies, etc. So, I dropped it at her door while she was out, with a note saying what it was and that there wouldn't be any other contact. A few days later, I have the police at my door because dropping off her stuff was harassing and stalking her. Explained my side. Showed a nice policewoman all the emails I had saved showing that, yes, we had been friends. No, it wasn't stalking. Ended up with her getting a warning for misuse of 911. If it was a sudden change of behavior and personality, I hope she got seen by a doctor. It's good to hear that all of her slammer didn't stick to you though. My ex cheated on me, and she knew I would come home early that day, so when I walked into the house I caught them in the act, and she acted like it was my fault. Man, I don't even know how I'd react to walking in on it. I was cheated on and it absolutely wrecked my mental health for a good while. Sorry that happened. My mother was malignant narcissist. She psychologically abused me and beat me down so low that I never lived up to my full potential. I know it's cliché, supposed to be wrong to blame your parents after you're grown, and I've worked hard to get farther along in life than most people do, but I know I could have been so much more if she hadn't been the sick person that she was. Today, I'm 72 and still moving forward and upward. I have 2 nice homes, my own business and friends, but in the years it took to heal myself, time was not on my side. I could have had the career I wanted if I had not listened to her when I was young. I could have had a home and family had I not been warped. These are things you have to start young at, and I can't grin back time. I blame myself enough, but I still congratulate myself too. I've managed to bring myself to a place where I am happy and secure. I have a good life now. It's okay to blame bad parents for being bad parents. Congrats on your life. People's stories are far worse than mine, but I suppose everyone's are terrible to the person dealing with it. My dad left when I was 15 months old. I'm 30 years old tomorrow and there has not been a day I don't think of him and wonder why I wasn't good enough. Every big birthday I had I thought this may be the year he makes contact. Always feel stupid. I told myself at my 21st birthday I wouldn't do it anymore, wouldn't think about it, but here I am 30 tomorrow still hoping I get that card in the post or he turns up at my door. Tried every avenue to find him over the last few years, but he made a good job of making it impossible. It's affected all aspects of my life in ways I never realized until recently. If I make it to a day and I have my own child, I hope I will be good enough to become a father, as I honestly have no idea what it means or how to be one. Spend most my days thinking of ending this crap. It was on accident, but my friend cut the tip of my finger off with scissors. It felt so bad and I have a huge scar. At the time when it happened we just stood there as blood was all over the floor and the tip of my finger laid on the blade. I popped my finger in my mouth and ran to the office. It looked like a brain was pushing itself out of my finger. All veins exposed and everything. Dated a woman for a time and eventually got involved with her teen kids and acted in a step-parent role for years. Invested tons of my time, energy, and resources into them as a family. Then my GF went into a spell of depression and didn't want to do anything or talk about anything. Life went on around her. Then when she saw me spending time with the kids instead of sitting on the couch doing and saying nothing like her, she became pathologically jealous and started accusing me of having too much interest in young girls. I spent a long time trying to fix and salvage the situation as I felt we were all bonded together as a family. Paid out of pocket for counseling for us, and for her exclusively for a long time after the therapist determined the locus of the problem was not me. She never accepted responsibility for her claim and the effects it had. Thought she could just casually dismiss it at will, like she'd claimed I left the toilet seat up one time. Thought I was making a big deal out of everything. She never spent a second addressing the childhood traumas that openly affected her whenever there was a pinch, even invoking them as an excuse for acting how she did, then pretending they were fixed or non-existent the 99% of the time she did not need to use them to manipulate the situation at hand. Finally had to walk away from the situation. Started dating someone else, who was a college debate coach with a PhD in English, night and day communication and interaction styles. And she acted like I abandoned her. Even cheated when I made good on my promise to leave without effort on her part. Now a long time later I still hear from one of the boys who is now in his 30s and just had a baby. At least 2 of my ex's grown children don't even talk to her at this point. I never tried to assemble a family again, but have had a very fulfilling love life since. Close friend cheated on his girlfriend with my sister. His girlfriend found out and he blamed it all on me. Said I arranged it all, as if I was my sister's pimp or something. He was so full of crap, and probably still is. Got his friends to ambush me when I was drunk. They held me down while he pushed lit cigarettes into my arms. Still have the scars 15 years later, although I've had them tattooed over so they're barely visible now. In his mind I deserved it because I slept with his girlfriend, but in my defense she told me they had broke up 6 months previously and were no contact. In 6th grade I was running down some stairs with stuff in my hands. I had 3-4 steps left when a 2-year-old guy hit me in the back of my head with a table tennis racket. I flew down face first into the concrete floor. 22 years later still in pain every day from this. Had a real piece of crap stepmom when I was 12. My dad married her because he was busy and needed someone to care for my younger brother and I. She loved him but abused the crap out of me. She would push me down the stairs and call me fat. That started the long road of developing a terrible eating disorder that consumed my life until the last couple years. I'm in recovery and doing well. But as a little kid without ever having my birth mother around I still loved her endlessly. My only escape really was video games. I would often spend hours at the computer playing random little games I found online. I remember this so clearly and it hurt for a long time to think about. One day she decided she didn't want to live with us and just straight up abandoned us. After she left I went to go play some games at the computer and found a little nearly folded up note. It was a note she left about how much she hated me specifically. She was leaving because she didn't like me or want to be around me. Anyway, yeah, I had a very traumatic childhood. Frick you missy. Hope you're doing terrible in life. The girl I had a crush on when I was 8 only pretended to be my friend because she wanted to get embarrassing secrets out of me. She then spread them around and became one of the popular girls and I was horrendously bullied for years to come. Worst thing is we had after school English in middle school together again and she was like, hey, why do you not talk to me, etc. The B made a solid quarter of my life heck and just forgot about it. I'm scarred for life and she will never remember it, let alone feel bad about it. Kids can be so horrible. I'm so sorry this happened to you. The theme of my entire childhood was I never mattered to anyone in the slightest the moment I was no longer useful. I was just there to play with as a last resort, get put to work for little to no pay, or use my doormat kindness to the fullest extent. Once I wasn't useful, my friends would drop all contact with me or act very passive aggressive towards me. Took me a lot longer than I care to admit to finally stop trying to care about these people, especially after a few big life events I wanted to share with them went ignored. I was the really shy kid in class in elementary school and a classmate came up to me and offered me a piece of chocolate. As soon as I ate, he and the class laughed as he explained to me that he had found it unwrapped under an old desk nobody used that sat in the corner. Is this even that bad? Number. But it's always stuck with me. I couldn't do that to someone. It sticks with you cause it's just plain cruel. I'm sorry. Some kids are so sweet and others, just buttholes. When I was gone to my nephew's funeral, which was traumatic, my landlord got mad at me and entered my apt and grabbed my 18-year-old cat and put her in the Humane Society. I came back from my long trip to my cat being gone. Plus it was late so I couldn't go pick her up. Still makes me pee and unbelieving to this day. Your landlord is lucky you didn't slit their throat. I used to practice law. A team of partners for whom I worked teamed up against me in retaliation for my refusing to sleep with one of them who was married with 2 kids. They ruined my career and mental health. 2 weeks after leaving that job, I had 3 stress-related grand mal seizures and landed in the ICU. I feel so bad for you. I wish you all the best. 3. One time I went to a concert with a female friend that I had a massive crush on. At the end of the concert she ditched me to hook up with some dude she met at the show. The thing is we were sharing a hotel room because we were out of town, and that's where they went to fool around. So I walked around the city of Baltimore in the pouring rain at 2 o'clock in the morning while she's freaking around bro in our hotel room. Here's the real kicker. It was my birthday. Oh, tell me you paid for the tickets and the room too so I can die of second-hand embarrassment. My family has taught me cheating is how to get ahead in life. While I can cheat with the best of them, turns out hard work and effort is the way to go. Now I have very little motivation to try at anything and a high expectation. I catch myself ready to quit at the drop of a hat. My mom had me pay people to write papers. My dad taught me how to make things look good and be bad. My grandma taught me how to make a secret secure. My grandpa taught me how to frick someone over and come out clean. I was a fricking butthole to so many people and now I'm picking up pieces and just trying to be good. It's the crap that sticks with you that's the worst. Still searching for someone to write papers. My mother died very suddenly when I was 14. Parents had been separated 2 years. My dad flew to town the next day and let me know that about 3 hours after my mom died he had proposed to his girlfriend he had cheated on my mom with. My mother-in-law told everyone in our family that we had adopted a child from Haiti, had an elaborate backstory and even collected gifts for the child and was giving people status reports of how the child was doing. None of this was true, and when we eventually met other relatives and we found out, both they and us were very confused and hurt. I paid child support for 7 years. Due to random bulls, mostly distance. I only saw the kid once. Knew something was up but she had brown eyes and nobody in my family or hers did for generations. Kid isn't mine. The mom was collecting from multiple guys, only one of whom was the dad. Long story short, got my money back. Still talk to the child, who is in college now. My mother stigmatized me for wanting a doll to play with, to play the flute, and to become a nurse. Never mind that she married one. Judging by your username, I'm glad you didn't listen to her. Woman let our dog off the leash and it ran under my bike, on bike path, at high speed. 3 months in hospital, still doing rehab a year later. Never heard from her. My dad told me I'm not a good son. He shamed my body, shamed my personality for not being confident, timid, too sensitive, too quiet and introverted. He said I didn't love him. He said I am lucky to have a father like him. He hurt me so much, which is why I have most of the problems, not mental illnesses, that I have to this day. It's probably not as bad as other people's though. I'm sure they probably have it worse than I do. I guess take this a bit lightly, as I don't want to offend people who've had it worse than I did. Just because worse crap happened to other people doesn't lessen your own struggle. Hope you are in a better way today. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, Check another video. Bye for now.